police confirming a shooting occurred outside the home of Canadian rapper Drake in Toronto. This happening overnight in the wake of an escalating beef between Drake and hip-hop star Kendrick Lamar. This is the scene outside of Drake's home in the city's Bridle Path neighborhood, courtesy of our CTV News chopper. Police say a man sustained serious injuries after a shooting outside that home and was taken to hospital. Police also say a suspect fled in a vehicle, but no description has been released. So far, there's no word on whether Drake was at home at the time of the shooting, but we understand from police that he has offered to fully cooperate with them. Joining me now is Mark Mendelson. He is a former homicide detective, and he joins us now to discuss the developments in this case. As Mark, we're waiting for more word from police. Details are very scant right now. But what do you make of this shooting? This, for our viewers across the country, is known as the Bridle Path, this neighborhood. It's got a lot of mansions, but it's pretty open. It's not as though it's a gated area.
Yeah, and good morning, Marcia. You're right. It's not a gated area, but there are very, very large homes in that neighborhood. And what goes along with large homes like that is a lot of security cameras and other security precautions that are taking place. And if you ever had the opportunity to drive past Drake's residence, you'll notice that there are gates and there are walls and there is sort of strategically placed trees, et cetera, to provide security. And there are also uniformed security guards at the residence. And it's my understanding from a source within Toronto Police that, in fact, it is a security guard who is the victim of the shooting, who was working at the time. It was described to me as a drive-by shooting. And as you mentioned, the police have put out a suspect vehicle. So that's all we really know at this point. As you fairly stated, we don't know if Drake is at home, if he's in the country, or wherever. And now what the police are going to be doing is looking at the motivation behind this shooting. Again, there's lots of security cameras in all kinds of homes around that area, lots of security guards in other homes as well, and patrols. So they may have information of investigative value as well. But they'll be looking for the motivation. And of course, Marcia, in the backdrop of all of this is this sort of feud that's been going on, as you mentioned, with Lamar, in terms of who's dropping songs and who is disrespecting the other one. And as early as this morning, somebody actually went on Google Maps and re-tagged Drake's residence as Lamar's residence. So it's this feud going on. Now, whether this is all for clicks or for publicity, nobody knows at this point. But it really doesn't take anything more than somebody being offended by what they're seeing or reading to decide that they're going to take things into their own hands and commit this crime. And that's what the police will be looking at now. So it's very early on in the investigation. Lots of good security tape to look at. You have a living witness in this security guard that's been shot. And I'm sure that when he's able to speak, he will speak. And he'll be interviewed by the police. And we'll have to go from there.
Okay, and I just want to say, Mark, this is unconfirmed that it was the security guard. We're still waiting to hear officially from police. We expect them to be scrumming, hopefully, with reporters outside of that scene shortly, very shortly. I do want to ask you how police investigate something like this when a high-profile celebrity is involved.
Well, they're going to look at the motivation, as I mentioned earlier. Were there other threats that were coming in throughout the night, whether by text message or online? They'll be scouring all the online postings to see if anybody made any untoward or violent threats towards Drake or anybody that works for Drake or his residence. These are the things that they'll be looking at. They'll be scouring over the security tape to try and get a license plate and a description of that vehicle. And they'll be hunting down that vehicle as well. It may be stolen, it may not. We don't know. All of this is very early on. They'll be looking at the ballistics that remain at the scene, whether it's shell casings or if there's a bullet that's been retrieved from the victim or at the scene. They'll be looking at that, comparing that to other crimes that are out there now. So there's lots of steps to be taken. There's going to be interviews of Drake's staff and neighbors and canvassing of that nature. So it's going to take some time. this is not new. We have seen this not only in this city, but certainly in the United States, where there have been feuds between rappers who have filmed a video in somebody else's quote unquote territory, and the response has been violence. We've seen murders related to the industry and people who are involved in that genre of music, and we've seen a lot of murders in the States that have been related to that. So this is not new. But it is obviously upsetting, and it will be thoroughly investigated, I'm sure, by the police.
And I'm well aware that this next question is of a speculative nature, but we understand Drake is cooperating with police, but we don't know if he was there. The fact that he has made that outreach, or they reached out to him, do you think, Mark, that he was at home at the time?
I have no idea. I just don't know about the travels of Drake. I'm too old, Marcia, to keep an eye on that. But at the end of the day, he's going to have information of investigative value, whether he was in the home or whether he was in another country. And, and again, I'll go back to, has he been threatened in any way, either directly or indirectly, and from who, and what steps did they take? What steps did the security guards at the residence take? So by cooperating, I would expect him to cooperate. I'm quite sure the police reached out to him right away, because he will have some answers to help fill some of the voids in this puzzle.
I want to ask you about security at the home, and you're right. If you were able to drive, if anyone has driven by, they would see that security was pretty tight. But clearly, Mark, this shows us that no security system is perfect.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if what I've been told is correct, that it was a drive-by shooting, there really is nothing preventative there. There's cars. It's an open road. There's cars able to drive back and forth all the time. And, security guards in Canada are not armed. They are unarmed security guards. And, you can have the best security systems in the world. You can have the best physical security in terms of gates and, brick walls, things of that nature. But to be able to be proactive and prevent somebody from just driving by the house and opening fire, short of closing the road, there really is no solution.
Could you see this investigation expanding to involve other law enforcement, or is this in the hands of Toronto police solely?
Well, right now, the offense took place in Toronto, so they will have jurisdiction. They'll have carriage of the investigation. In the event that they have to reach out to other police services to follow up on threats or perceived threats, there'll be no hesitation from the police to reach out to whatever police service, wherever it may be in North America or in Europe. It doesn't really matter. There's always good cooperation. And you're right. They may have witnesses they need interviewed very quickly in wherever, LA or London or Paris. We don't know. But it's just a phone call away, and those interviews will be done.
Celebrities are often targeted, and it's even worse with social media these days. Mark, do you, from your experience, know if people always go to the police if they are feeling threatened, or if they have been threatened?
Most people do. Most people aren't threatened, I think, but the higher profile you live your life, the more you're on TV and on the radio and on social media, the more you expose yourself. And, every threat has to be weighted in terms of a threat assessment, as to whether it's even possible to identify the source, and what that person is doing in their particular life and in their particular business at that time. But I certainly, from my experience and from my clients, threats like this are reported to the police because they do need that assistance, and they have a far wide-reaching investigative, wingspan, if you will, to investigate these things as opposed to doing it internally.
Okay, I really need a quick answer because I know you have to do another interview, Mark. Do you feel that this was a warning, a sign, or do you think that there was an attempt of murder here?
I think anytime you shoot somebody, that's an attempted murder. I mean, we watch it on TV. Oh, why don't you, shoot him in the leg or shoot him in the arm? That's not reality. That's not how the world works. So, yeah, when you shoot somebody, I think there's an intent to kill.